Friends, we will pick up the next three names for our study today. Friends, the study today attempts to find answers to a question that was asked in our initial meetings. Is rebirth something we should believe and accept? Or is this an idea that has withered away to modern scientific scrutiny? Those are powerful questions and need a lot of scrutiny and rationality that we need to bring to this study. Friends, we had told earlier on how knowledge is earned. 1/4 by the tutelage of a teacher, 1/4 by self-study, 1/4 through fellow students, and 1/4 through life experience. So we have the privilege today to learn about the validity of rebirth through the questions asked by our Sahapati or fellow student about 2 years ago. The question asked then was, is there something called rebirth? So let us make attempts to appreciate some ideas presented on that subject today. The names we pick for our study today are Punar-Vasuḥ, meaning one who dwells repeatedly in bodies of beings or reincarnates. Upendra, meaning one who is superior to Indra or one who is the younger brother of Indra. The third is Vamana, meaning one who incarnates as Vamana, one of the avatars, or one who is to be worshipped. Friends, we shall attempt some changes to our presentation format. We will cover the deeper message and meaning in one or two names and conclude with the slides for the three names we have picked for our study today. So, for today, we will pick the name Punar-Vasuḥ, meaning to reincarnate. This comes in Bhrajishnur Bhojanam Bhokta Sahishnur Jagadadijaha Anagho Vijayo Jeta Vishvayoni Punar-Vasuḥ. Punar-Vasuḥ or rebirth or reincarnation. Friends, this is a subject of deep intrigue and it presents to us the question of what is death and is there such a thing as afterlife? If such afterlife or rebirth is a possible idea, what influences this rebirth? What are the escape routes from this cycle of rebirth or reincarnation? Friends, such were the very questions asked by the young mind of Nachiketa. Yes, to find answers, he remained at the doors of Yama, the one who could provide him with satisfying answers for days together. Yama, or time, was the most qualified person to answer Nachiketa's question, as he is witness to both the here and the hereafter. So Yama, impressed with the little boy and his commitment, grants him 3 boons. The last of the boons, he seeks answer to the question similar to what we had our friends here ask 2 years ago. So So Nachiketa's question goes like this. Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye astit yeke nayamastiti chaike etat vidyam anushististvayaham varanamesha varastitritiya. When a man dies, there is this doubt. Some say that he exists. Some others say that he does not exist. This I should like to know, being taught by you. Of the boons, this I seek as my third boon. Friends, as students, we too have joined Nachiketa today and knocked on the doors here for answers. But we also need to prepare ourselves to appreciate and digest the answers we get. So, to prepare ourselves today, let us take a little deviation from this Katha Upanishad context and do a switch to Bhagavad Gita. Let us study Shloka number 20 from chapter 2 and hear the ideas presented there by Lord Himself. Like always, I shall say a few words and pause where possible. Please repeat after me as loud as possible and make it yours. So this is Shloka number 20 from chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Najayate mriyate va kadachi nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. This consciousness is never born, nor does it ever die. It is not something that, having been born, it again ceases to be. Unborn, eternal, and everlasting, this ancient one is not killed when the body is killed. The ancient one is not killed when the body is killed. Friends, what we see presented here is what we call in science the parallax error. A parallax error is created based on the point of view. The observer here will see different value based on the point of view. The concept presented here is this: that something that was not born cannot be argued as dead. That something that was not born cannot be argued as dead. So, there is one point of view that is saying it dies and another says it lives on, was Nachiketa's question. So, the idea presented in the sloka above is that these arguments are created based on that parallax error or point of view. What are those points of view? The points of view are what Bhishma tells Yudhishthira in the Shanti Parva, the post-war period, in the phrase Amritaschaiva mrityuscha dvayam dehe pratishtitam mrityur apadyade moha satyena apadyade amritam. There exist two entities in human personality, one that is perishable or time-bound, and another that is imperishable, not time-bound, and eternal. When your school of thought is from that viewpoint of the time-bound entity, you will face delusion. When your point of view is time-bound, you face delusion. And when it is from the viewpoint of the not time-bound element, viewpoint is not time-bound element, you will experience the real truth. Friends, in supporting life, we invest a fair bit in our upkeep. Such will take the form of keeping physical fitness, maybe going to the gym or a run to a swim. And yes, we also go to a beautician and get ourselves dresses that will present us in a very appealing way. Yes, these are to be desired and pursued for with full earnestness. Such pursuit comes to us with a flaw is a caution given here. What is that flaw? It consumes our capacities in its fullness. When all our capacities are consumed in worldly indulgence, we tend to ignore the upkeep of the timeless dimension within. So, in the backdrop of an ignored and unnourished timeless dimension within us, when some unexpected events occur to us, we tend to go into a loop of why me? What did I do wrong? Or what Bhishma calls it as your mind becomes deluded. However, when we have nurtured the eternal dimension in us as well with the spiritual nourishment, then the point of view moves to the infiniteness. Any impact to the time-bound entity is received with a broader forbearance. That yes, such is the experience I am to cherish in this time-boxed frame. I, however, am infinite. Friends, we are not saying that the push and pull of life will go away, but our ability to accept it with balanced mind comes into us. An analogy we can take is that of an unripe or green coconut. Yes, the green coconut. In this, the kernel is clinging to the shell of the coconut. The kernel is clinging to the shell of the coconut. When one attempts to peel that kernel, then we tend to scrape a portion of that shell as well. However, when the coconut is ripe, or the brown coconut, the kernel has already separated from the shell. Now, such ripening is what we attempt to accomplish with this spiritual nourishment. Friends, we are attempting to appreciate the name Punar-Vasuḥ, or rebirth or reincarnation. So, this parallax error on the point of view is what influences the interpretation. Now that we have understood the two point of view, where one is time-bound and another is not time-bound, let us understand what happens with this eternal or not time-bound entity. What is its reincarnation potential? So let's go back to Yama, time himself. Nachiketa's question here was, is there life after death? And here is Yama's response. Yonim manye prapadyante sharirattvaya dehinah thānu manyenu samyanti yatha karma yatha shrutam. Some consciousness enter the womb to get embodied. Others go to the plant according to their action and according to their disposition. So, if man is measured primarily as a physical body with the non-physical trait or the consciousness arising from that physical body as its byproduct, then there can be no question of survival or rebirth. So, if this consciousness is a byproduct of the physical body, then there can be no question of survival or rebirth. However, if man is essentially consciousness which manufactures that physical body for its own self-manifestation, then survival and rebirth follow as a matter of course. So, the Katha Upanishad statement seen above is saying this, that the moksha or spiritual redemption is possible on fully realizing oneself to be the eternal Atman. On knowing that rebirth holds no meaning to such a person. But till one attains such a realization, one is under the pull of the body and the sense organs. And it is this pull, the yatha karma, yatha shrutam, yatha karma, yatha shrutam, that gravitates that soul or consciousness to new physical formation to work out its karma. So, in summary, friends, we attempted to understand the meaning of the name Punar-Vasuḥ. We took aid of Mahabharata and Bhishma's statement on the two dimensions that drive these two schools of thought. One having the potential to create delusion, the other granting the spiritual and philosophical truth. Friends, we have made most of our learning from the tools of Purushartha. In this framework, the philosophical guidance upon humanity is to win both sides, the outer as well as the inner, where moksha or spiritual freedom is recommended as one of the purposes one needs to accomplish in life. We saw through the analogy of the raw and the ripe kernel of a coconut that persons identifying with body will experience the stings of death more, and for a spiritually liberated person, the notion of rebirth holds no meaning. This, friends, was the summary of the name Punar-Vasuḥ, or one who is reborn or reincarnate. In other words, knowing these, one can remain as masters of our lives rather than the slaves is the message. Friends, our zest and pleasures should be measure of our fulfillment and not that of inner emptiness. Friends, modern science, that is very evidence-driven, has not given this concept an acceptance. It cannot give acceptance since it cannot be proved. Science relies a lot on logic in arriving at truth. When it comes to logic, it is stated that logic is hindsight. Logic is intelligence. Logic is ego. Logic is time-bound. Faith excels logic. So, science that relies on evidence and logic, which are by itself time-bound, is attempting to fathom something that is timeless. Or science is using tools that are time-bound in nature to measure a timeless dimension. So by that very nature of science, science can never accept the survival of consciousness, and it never will. We had seen such similar paradox in our previous study of the observer and the observed, where science was falling short of the tools. However, such scientific minds assay it as so in the book Reincarnation and East-West Anthology. Reincarnation, friends, was seen as a very Eastern philosophy. This book captures such experiences on both the Eastern and the Western hemispheres. So, in this book, the preface reads as so: although a surprising number of distinguished thinkers of every period of history have either championed or on occasion favorably considered the idea of repeated existences upon earth. As this book attests, such testimony hardly establishes reincarnation as a fact. It does suggest, however, that an idea that has occupied so many exceptional minds cannot be lightly dismissed, but is worth of questioning, study, and investigation. So science here has been true to its element in saying science cannot accept the survival of the consciousness, but at the same time has no objections to it. Friends, this has been a long subject of study today. Some of us students, like Nachiketa, may have found satisfactory answer to the question, and some of us are carrying an agitation in our minds and hearts. So we will conclude with the comforting words of Yama to both such segments of students. Shravanayapi bahubhiryo na labhyah Shunvantopi bahavoyam na vidyuhu Ascharyo vakta kushalosya labdha Ascharyo jnata kushalanushisishta. The Atman is not available to be heard of by many. Even among those who hear about it, many do not comprehend it. Wonderful or rare is the expounder or the teacher of this knowledge, and expert is the recipient or student. Wonderful is the one who knows it, having been instructed by an able preceptor. Let us take up the other two names for today. Upendra, meaning one who is superior to Indra and one who is the younger brother of Indra. Vamana, meaning one who incarnates as Vamana or one who is to be worshipped. Friends, in our study objective, we set out by saying a religion should support man in both his life and in his death. While the very Lord of Time has been empathetic to the challenges to us students in grasping as well as accepting the tutorage on this subject, we in the study group have been very privileged as we get to do the Vishnu Sahasranama very often. A sloka we recite there is this: Yasya smarana matrena janma samsara bandhanat. Reciting that name alone will get you the desired liberation. So today's name qualified some degree of scrutiny to surface the fullness of the Hindu religion and philosophy, and has been a longer presentation. I thank you for accommodation. I thank you for your attention. Let us go into the meditation and nurture and nourish that eternal reality within all of us.